Those of us who take care of patients really would like to get back to doing that as well as possible. And I think that's a sentiment that's true across the country. And the ability to scale up a process by which patients and their families could have an advocate, ready-made sort of help for them to understand the medical system and perhaps to get through it more efficiently, is almost universal. So I don't see that there's any shortage across the country of people needing that kind of help. So my practice in oncology is primarily taking care of folks with brain tumors. I was privileged to meet Steve Warren for a variety of reasons. We came on his radar screen as a place that you might want to visit if you had a malignant brain tumor, to find out about some new treatment options and new care options. And so I met Steve and his son David at that point. He came initially looking to participate in a clinical trial that we had going with a very novel vaccine therapy for brain tumors. In large part through David's perseverance and sort of digging and going through literature and making himself a clinical trials expert and a brain tumor expert, they were able to find some therapies both on and off protocols that might provide his father with some benefit, and many of those they've decided to incorporate into what we would call a standard backbone of treatment, something that most patients in his situation might get. And I think one of the reasons to do this was that he has a particularly kind of unique type of brain tumor, although it's a variant of a very aggressive brain tumor called a glioblastoma. It's even a rarer subtype of that, and as a result we really know very little about the best way to treat that rare subtype of tumor. And I think David used that as fodder to a certain degree to say, hey, if we don't know, when we have to see what's out there and kind of piece through them and see if we can put together a compilation of treatments that have shown some benefit, and with the help of people who have a lot more experience, let's see if we can come up with a treatment plan that gives his dad the best chance of doing well with this disease. And I think he's shown remarkable tenacity to really identify some of those things that may have some marginal benefit or greater benefit, and figure out which of those to combine and how to combine them, with the help of the medical folks they're seeing. He really impressed me quite quickly with the grasp he had of sort of an esoteric group of medical knowledge and an unusual group of tumors and a fairly rare group of tumors, and his ability as a non-medical person to really do his own research and his own legwork and get an understanding of what his dad was facing, as well as sort of standard and non-standard approaches. We have a lot of patients who have family members who try to do that, and they're often successful to one degree or another. But I think David impressed me, without a background in medicine, as having really been able to capture that information, but kind of boil it down to the sort of important pieces of information, and try to let that huge volume of information that didn't necessarily apply kind of go by the wayside. And the sad reality is that, we're all so busy, and we have so many patients facing so many problems, and the medical literature is exploding, that it's not always feasible or possible in a timely fashion for the healthcare team to find some of that information, for a given patient. It's just the reality. Patients need to be their own advocate, or enlist others to help them be their advocate, to try to find that information and wade through the medical process. And what I was impressed with right away, after being a bit scared of David that this was going to turn into a real confrontation, as he had done a lot of legwork and I was just getting a chance to meet his dad. In fact, it became clear that David sort of wasn't having any of that. He wasn't interested in assigning blame to who knew what and who didn't know what, but rather his goal was to try to find information and relevant information that might be useful for his dad, and viewed me as a conduit to sort of run that information by, to say, yeah, important, not important, useful, not useful. And so once I was able to take a deep breath and realize he wasn't trying to challenge me and my medical knowledge or decision making, but in fact try to help me, especially in this unique situation his dad was in, it became a very positive experience. And I think the concept of having really an advocate who was part of the team, not a hindrance to to the interaction with the medical, with medical professionals, but really an aid to that, a helper, somebody to do some legwork. I think I made some pretty specific comments to David, both sort of off the cuff and then a little bit more direct, saying that, my experience, having done this for about 18 years or so, in some ways he had done the best job of any of the family members or advocates I've seen of really taking the best of what he could do and marrying it with the kind of traditional medical interactions between patients and doctors in a way to try to help that and try to move that process along with cutting edge sorts of material and cutting edge data. And I think my quote to him was something like, you got to figure out a way to bottle this so that it doesn't just help your dad, but so maybe this type of approach could be used to help other people, because everybody needs an advocate. Everybody needs a way to help them wade through the medical system, which is big and complex and not always as friendly to patients as we would like it to be. Not surprisingly, I think I got an email from David maybe a couple months after that phone call, and he had essentially taken that concept, that idea, and thought about it and morphed it into a nonprofit organization designed to do just what we had talked about, generate advocates for patients who might not otherwise have one. Patients and their families are consumed sometimes with fighting their particular illness and their particular cancer, and don't have the expertise or the time or the energy to do some of the things that he was able to do for his dad. And he had thought about that, I think, and come up with a model to try to get bright young people who were motivated and interested in helping others and enlisting their help for patients, specifically initially at least in our cancer center, to try to help guide them through the process that he had been instrumental in guiding his father through and continues to be. And not surprisingly, judging by his energy, which was pretty apparent, in our conversations and when we met, that became a tangible entity in Take the Fight, and pair students and trainees and advisors and advocates with patients to unleash them, as it were, on the medical interaction between patients and their families and doctors, and see if we can figure out a way to make that work better. Again, not in a confrontational way, but really in a I'm here to help way, and see if we can't do better than we've done before.